So far, we've talked about our work in the areas of income and education. But just as important as having a quality education and enough income to support your family is having good health. And good health begins with access to health care and the promotion of healthy lifestyles. Metro Atlanta is home to nearly 40% of all Georgians and more than 30% of the state's uninsured. In fact, approximately 650,000 people in Metro Atlanta do not have health insurance. At United Way, we believe that everyone should have access to quality health care, including medical, dental, and mental health services. That's why we are working with our community partners to build and sustain healthy, productive communities. Here today to talk with me about one of our health initiatives is Carolyn Proffitt, Area Director for United Way and Coweta and Fayette counties, and Dr. Peter Scire, Executive Director for the Change Your Brain Foundation. Welcome to you both. A lot of our viewers probably have heard about Coweta and Fayette counties, but may not know very much about them. Give us the Chamber of Commerce kind of introduction
of course.
To those two.
Glad to, because it's a wonderful area of the state. We're only 30 miles south of Atlanta. Many people think it's further, but it's not. We've got a combined population of right around 310,000 individuals and families. We have gotten, Forbes has just announced that Peachtree City in Fayette County is the fourth most desirable place to live in the country. And in Coweta as well, we've got more industry in Coweta. We have got a host of talent coming from there. Alan Jackson, the country music star, many others, and they are two small, big towns.
And I'm sure in two small, big towns, you've got to have a lot of creativity and a lot of partnerships, particularly to address any human service issues that might be at play.
With United Way, we've got 31 grantee partners and community partners that we collaborate with, and we're very conscientiously weaving a network of support services. We were doing that before the downturn in the economy, but since the economy has gone down, the number of people needing these services previously not needed before has risen exponentially, and we've been able to be there and provide for them. Within the 31 community and grantee partners, we touch all aspects of human life, from infancy all the way to the elderly, and we serve all of those needs in some capacity. But Milton, the biggest issue right now, human service issue in Coweta and Fayette, actually is around access to health care, both primary health care and health care itself. And that's exactly why we formed the partnership. We had to reach out in terms of our United Way Health Initiative, because when we looked at our service providers, we realized that we were not plentiful in that area. So we reached out in order to fill that hole, because again, with the United Way philosophy and the initiatives of health, income, education, and homelessness, if you don't have your health, the other things are largely out of your reach, and homelessness might become an issue for you. So we are proud in terms of one of our first collaborations with the Change Your Brain Foundation, and that's something more that Dr. Scire can tell us about. But in Fayette County, we have an epidemic number, one of the highest in the state, of children with neurodevelopmental disorders. And we're looking at that carefully and understanding why that is in that particular area of the state.
I mean, that's an astounding statistic. What's behind it? What's Brain Balance? What's Change Your Brain Foundation?
Well, number one, we are in the largest epidemic ever to face children. 1 in 6 children now are defined as neurodevelopmental disorders. So what's a neurodevelopmental disorder? Well, we're familiar with autism. We hear numbers of like 1 in 100 now, where 20 years ago it was 1 in 10,000. Rates of ADHD are 1 in every 25 child. Children would develop learning delays or dyslexia, as well as tics and Tourette's. So those are what you would define as neurodevelopmental disorders. Through my residency, I was able to do a mentorship through a gentleman named Dr. Robert Mello, who's the founder of Brain Balance, and I was fortunate enough to bring the model here to Atlanta to serve these communities. And one of the most astonishing things as I started serving these children was that how their lives and their family lives were transformed, and that families that have a diagnosis of autism, 80% of them end up in divorce. And the rates of families that have came to me and said that if you're not able to help address my child's problem, we may end up in divorce, or that they're financially going from one therapy to the next therapy with no end and no end in sight. And so what was remarkable about the program that we offer at Brain Balance, this hemispheric integration model, was it's very cutting edge, it's revolutionary, and we've kind of been able to stop that roulette table for many of these families. And so one of the things that these families want to do is give back in names of scholarships, or to be able to provide for a lot of single moms or a lot of families that are in need. And that's how the Change Your Brain Foundation got started and established here. And then it was just a chance meeting between Carolyn and myself, and then she said that, wow, this kind of fit one of the initiatives of United Way, and that's kind of how this whole partnership began.
Well, I'm sure it fits a number of them. We certainly at United Way worry about children. We worry about financially vulnerable families. And I know from the conversations I've had with a lot of families who struggle paying for drugs for ADHD, who worry about therapy and everything else. I mean, it's got to be a tremendous financial drain.
Yeah, they refer to it as COI, cost of illness. And the cost of illness for a family with ADHD in this country now ranges somewhere between $12,000 to $15,000 a year. Wow. The cost of illness for a family with autism is somewhere between $40,000 to $50,000 a year. Okay, San Francisco Chronicle last year talked about how just in California alone that the average case was $60,000 dollars per year for a child with autism for the rest of their life. So we are in probably the most difficult times economically this country's ever faced, and these numbers are growing at a rate that no one doesn't seem to think that there's going to be a downturn. Okay, and that our centers are full throughout Georgia as well as the ones that are outside the state, and being able to take that child and be able to recover or functionally improve the quality of life of that child to where that the family is no longer having to have that COI out of their pocket. And also when you start talking to school systems, and we have amazing school systems here in the state of Georgia, and they're providing a tremendous amount of services, but they're overburdened. These numbers are staggeringly increasing, and when we're having the state level has to cut costs, and one of the things that we see is that some of those programs that help these children at the school levels are obviously being slashed dramatically. And so that's another outlet where something like Change Your Brain can help and be able to help school systems as well as these parents directly.
So if I call up Change Your Brain, what can I expect to happen in the way of diagnosis, services, education? Just tell me what happens.
Well, Change Your Brain is an opportunity for families that are actually coming into the Brain Balance Centers here in the Metro Atlanta area that are maybe unable to afford a certain segment of the tuition cost for Brain Balance to have actually a partial educational scholarship that's given to them. There's an applicant process for that. But that was the whole start of it, was how, again, in this time where families have only a certain amount of money right now and they've expenditure so much, because that's the big thing, is how many families have spent thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in previous treatment with not a whole lot of success. And you take something that's revolutionary like hemispheric integration therapy to be able to...
Hemispheric integration therapy.
Yes.
What's that mean?
Well, basically what it means is that we actually have symmetry from one side of the brain to the other. We've always known that, the right brain does certain things, the left brain does certain things. Well, we actually now know that the core problem with all these developmental disorders is what we call a functional disconnection syndrome, where literally what it means is that one side of the brain is actually developing at an immature rate compared to the other side. And so hence the name Brain Balance.
For all those families that are out there sort of struggling, just don't know what to do, what's the word of encouragement you can give them?
Well, number one, hope, because these disorders are not a genetic disorder. They're not, when we look at these children's brains, that their brains are not damaged or destroyed. They're functional issues. So it's like hurting an arm and having to sling for a little bit, then you go back and just do a little bit of exercises. So the brain is a muscle, so you're able to actually exercise. So I see these families that have despair and they've lost this hope, and then to be able to, number one, change that paradigm, and then to be able to give them something that they see a change in their child, and okay, we're on the right course, and let's just keep going. So hope is definitely the number one thing.
Thank you both for coming.
Thank you so much.
Underneath everything we are, underneath everything we do, we are all people, connected, interdependent, united. And when we reach out a hand to one, we can influence the condition of all. That's what it means to live united.